Before I really start this video, I just want to say that I feel completely neutrally towards Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys. I'm not a big Cowboys fan or a big Dak Prescott fan, but I definitely don't root against either of them, the way I did, for example, against Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, and the New England Patriots of last decade. I've never taken the time before, though, to really consider Prescott's talent, though, so that's what I will do here. Dak Prescott was a fourth-round pick by the Dallas Cowboys in the year of 2016. He was supposed to be a backup QB for the Dallas Cowboys, but that all changed when the then 36-year-old Tony Romo got tackled by Cliff Averill of the Seahawks in a preseason game and had a compression fracture in his back, leading him to miss the rest of the preseason and the first few weeks of the regular season as well. However, what nobody realized at the time was that this was the end of the Tony Romo era for the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott had a really good 2016 preseason, but most people were still skeptical about how talented he really was. That all changed in the 2016 regular season, though, when Prescott threw for 3,667 yards with a 67.8 completion rating, with the latter currently being a career high. Prescott also threw for 23 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, with those 4 interceptions being the lowest of his entire career. This was enough for him to be named to his first Pro Bowl. He didn't miss a single game that season or even in his career due to an injury or any other reason, which is something that players like Deshaun Watson, Carson Wentz, and Patrick Mahomes can't say, with Watson being about to get a massive contract and the others having already gotten their massive contracts. Unfortunately for Prescott, however, his second season can only be described as below average. He only had 22 passing touchdowns and 13 interceptions, despite playing with the check down style. Prescott also had an abysmal 3,324 passing yards as well, which was the worst of his career. Keep in mind, though, when I'm talking about Dak Prescott's passing stats, that he is a mobile QB and he's very good at scrambling, which is very valuable in today's NFL. His third year was decent, as he had 3,885 passing yards, and while he only threw 22 touchdowns again, he threw 8 interceptions, which was much lower than 2017. Strangely enough, Prescott made the Pro Bowl after his 2018 season, but not after his much better 2019 season. A big reason as to why 2017 was so bad is likely Ezekiel Elliott, who only played 10 games and wasn't quite the same Zeke that he's been every other year. This was also the only year of Elliott's career where he did not make a Pro Bowl. Last season, however, was the year when Dak Prescott turned his career around, though, and showed he isn't quite as overprotective of the ball as he had seemed to be in previous years. Dak Prescott had 4,900 passing yards and 30 touchdowns, both by far the best of his career. However, his 65.1% completion rating was lower than his career average, and his 11 interception number was above his career average of 9, as was his 1.8% interception percentage. This shows he's willing to play a little bit more recklessly, and his interception numbers weren't even close to being worrisome. When a QB wants $30 million a year, they're basically saying that they're just as valuable as a $15 million QB, like for example Ryan Tannehill, but also having an extra Derrick Henry on your team, in addition to everyone you already have, minus the $30 million QB. Derrick Henry showed last year that he was good enough to carry a team, and that running backs are still an important part of the NFL today, even despite Patrick Mahomes' contract, which is believed to be over $500 million. So wouldn't it make sense to pay Dak Prescott a 4-year, $120 million contract or something like that? For many different reasons, no. Yes, Patrick Mahomes' contract could influence the market for QBs even more, and it could make Dak Prescott worth even more to the Dallas Cowboys, but here's something that a lot of people just gloss right over about the new contract Mahomes got. It's 10 years long. A lot of people know that and talk about it, but what they haven't been thinking much is how much money quarterbacks will be paid then. Maybe by Mahomes' 9th through 10th season, he will be considered an underpaid QB according to the standards of what other QBs are being paid. It probably won't happen, but the deal will make a lot more sense when the NFL brings in more revenue and has a higher salary cap, forcing teams to spend more money on their players, especially at the seemingly ever more valuable quarterback position. Of course, that could all change depending on how much the NFL will inevitably lose due to a season with the coronavirus around as opposed to a normal season, but that's impossible to predict, so I won't even try to predict it. A bigger reason as to why Dak Prescott doesn't deserve the $30 million a year contract he's asking for is that he just simply hasn't been nearly as valuable as Patrick Mahomes, or even fellow 2016 NFL draft quarterback Carson Wentz, whose 2019 season made him the first QB to throw for over 4,000 yards without having a single wide receiver have over 500 receiving yards. But this wasn't a Kirk Cousins-like statistical season without very many wins, and the Eagles made the playoffs with Carson Wentz carrying them on his back. Had Carson Wentz not gotten injured in the Eagles' wild card round game, those same Eagles who seemed to lose 3 receivers a week due to injuries could have made it to the NFL divisional round of the playoffs. Meanwhile, Dak Prescott has had some of the best offensive lines since the famous The Hogs of the 1970s, and wide receivers such as Michael Gallup, Amari Cooper, and Cole Beasley on the team at the same time. Not to mention a running back who led the league in rushing yards the same year, and yet Prescott only went 10-6 and lost in the divisional round of the playoffs that year, which was 2018. Oh yeah, by the way, the wild card game they won against the Seattle Seahawks was Dak Prescott's only current career playoff win. That doesn't seem like $30 million a year production to me. People have to remember that statistics at the end of the day are determining how well a player plays or how talented they are, but not how valuable they are. Last year in 2019, when Dak Prescott had an offense that was just about the same except without Cole Beasley, with a slightly better tight end, and with his center who missed all of 2018 anyways retiring. That team, however, only went 8-8, missing the playoffs in a division with only Carson Wentz and the old run-down Eagles competing for a playoff spot. In conclusion, Dak Prescott is a very good quarterback who may even someday become a consistently good quarterback. But when you take a minute to think about why $30 million a year quarterbacks are $30 million a year quarterbacks, Dak Prescott just doesn't fit enough of the requirements and overall just isn't as valuable to the Cowboys as a $30 million a year quarterback should be. If the Cowboys draft a QB in the first or second round of next year's draft, it could be a cheaper and better replacement for Dak Prescott than simply just keeping Prescott for the next 4 or 5 years. Also, I said before that the Hogs played in the 1970s, and I was wrong. They played in the 80s and the early 90s. So yeah, please don't call me out on that. I know I messed up.